Okay guys, so today we're planning for third grade math, and we are going to start with the materials that we all need to make sure we brought today. So does everyone have the curriculum documents?
Yes.
And the field guide?
Yes.
And the IQ
Yes.
release questions and the PLC menu?
Yes.
Okay, so we will start with flipping the PLC first. And so Andrea, you were assigned to vocabulary, so what can you share with us about this for this week?
All right, there are a few words. We've already talked about addition and the properties of addition and difference, but we're going to want to review those. Something new is going to be strategies. I think that's going to be a new word, especially for our ELLs, to bring up and explain to them, in reading. You have your reading strategies, and so, these are math strategies to work the addition and subtraction problems.
Okay. And did you, on one of the lessons, you said something about line segment?
I did. Whenever we start talking about the strip diagram, they do mention that it's a line segment. I think that's great to bring up for when we do talk about, we've talked about number of lines,
Right.
and so for them to recognize that that is a line segment for the total.
Okay. And Laura, you were the scaffold document?
Yes, and the scaffold for 3.4A is solve with fluency 1 and 2-step problems involving addition and subtraction within 1,000 using strategies based on place value, properties of operations, which we've already talked about, and relationship between addition and subtraction, which we've already talked about. So we've talked about all those strategies, but in second grade, they also went to 1,000, but all they talked about was how it dealt with place value. It wasn't about how it related with addition and subtraction or with operations.
So in second grade, did they add 3-digit and 3-digit numbers?
They did, but I don't know if they added it. All it says is it's based on place value. So they did go to 1,000, so that's not something that we have to worry about introducing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and Lauren, you were the field guide. So
Yes.
what do you have to share?
Something that I thought was interesting in the instructional implications is, you know how they talk about the different properties with addition, the commutative, the associative, inverse, etc. The kids don't have to know, hey, I'm doing the commutative property, because that can be a little bit overwhelming, but they do need to be introduced to those different ways of doing it, not necessarily knowing that that's specifically what it's called. Because I think sometimes we kind of get hung up on, okay, now what was that? But they don't have to worry about that. We want to be sure that when we're looking at word problems, I love that this gives examples on the field guide of different word problems. It's both addition and subtraction, and it shows just different ways to introduce it. So I like those examples on here. Some things that we want to be careful with, and I think we're getting pretty good at phasing this out, is teaching our kids that come up with keywords. And I think we've
Just saying.
had a couple years away from that practice that hopefully our kids aren't doing that, but we do want to be careful that they're not looking at one word and deciding how to solve a problem. The other thing is looking at the inverse being equivalent so that they know how to see it both ways and realize that they're the same.
Okay, and I had the IQ released questions, and I was just comparing the released questions to what I see in the field guide, and a lot of the word problems that are in the field guide are almost exactly the way it was tested on STAR. Just looking through, there's quite a few released questions on 3.4a.
Yes.
The main stimulus that is used is a word problem. Most of them are word problems, and they're multi-step word problems. A couple of them lend themselves particularly to one strategy. So for example, this question right here, Gilbert had a total of 85 CDs. He put them in stacks, and they gave the numbers 27 and 39 and what's in the third stack. This is a really good kind of word problem to use the strip diagram on, I think. So we can teach our kids that when you're looking for part, whole, strip diagram is a really good way to go. The other thing is, and I thought this was interesting, a 5th grade TEK that has now moved down to 3rd grade is about temperature. And on the released items, not only are the kids looking at a weather diagram here, but they're also having to do multi-step because it's asking them to record the high and low of each day and then find the one that matches the question that they're asking. So
So you have to solve all of them?
they have to
Yes.
solve all
And
of
Which
then
one
them.
figure out
does
which one
not?
answers the question?
Right,
Or
yeah.
which one does
And
not
this one
answer.
says, on which days will there be a difference of 18 degrees between the high and the low?
Oh my gosh, so
Okay.
they have
So
to
they
do-
have to, there's one, two,
Right.
three, four, there's 5 problems that they have to do
Right.
before they can even get to which one is the
Right.
answer.
And what was the correct answer? Was it
Well,
one?
there's multiple days, that's the thing, so it could be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so they have to work them all.
Oh my gosh.
Right, and the thing I noticed about the released IQs, there are quite a few, there's actually 8 of them for the 3.48. 5 are subtraction, multi-step subtraction.
Subtraction problem.
5
Right.
out of the 8.
Right, and there's one of them, there's one that uses a table. So when we're talking through the curriculum later, we probably want to use the table as our stimulus for assessment
Like the end of the week.
at the end of the
Right,
week,
right.
because it's having them pick things out of the table
Mhm.
to add together. So I
Right.
think this is really complicated for a third
Right.
grader at this point.
Well, and we've also added that to our calendar math. We've actually put a table up there where we change the information based on what we're studying in social studies and the today's challenge. So that would be a good stimulus
Good.
to use that
Yeah,
information.
and like you said, multi-step subtraction, I think that's where we're going to
Right.
get into the most distractor is the multi-step subtraction.
Right.
Okay, so
Let's look at the lessons.
Into the curriculum.
let's look at the curriculum, and what I'd like for us to do first is, does everybody have the PLC menu?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
What I'd like to do first is just have us briefly go through the lessons and kind of identify what the stimuli are in the
What they've already
curriculum
given
as,
us.
as it's already written, to see
Right.
if there's anything that we can add to help us out.
Right.
So
Okay.
skipping over 2-8, because that's a continuation of last week, let's start with lesson 3-1, which is 3.4a is the focus teak for the week.
Right.
So on that first day, is there any stimulus that we can circle on our PLC menu?
The thing I did want to add is this has not been tested in any of the release, or they do not have an expanded algorithm
Okay.
tested
The way
yet.
that they're teaching it in this
So
lesson.
that might be something that we need to look for,
Because that
problems.
means it might be
It
tested
could
that
be
way
coming
this year.
up.
Right. And the other
Exactly.
thing that concern about this is the kids that don't have their place value down
Yes.
and their expanded form of place value may struggle a little bit with
Right.
using this kind of strategy.
Right.
So,
The place value blocks are definitely going to be,
So we've got
key.
manipulatives.
yeah, so we have manipulatives.
okay, and then also in the lesson itself,
And we
there
have
are
got
base 10
place
block
value
visuals.
blocks.
Right.
Mhm.
Right,
Yes.
so we'll do base 10
Yes.
blocks as well. And then obviously there's word problems,
Right.
okay?
What I had thought about, looking in the lead forward, the strategies, I thought a good one might be kind of getting them ready for the see, plan, do, reflect, would be maybe to do some kind of foldable, do like a mystery envelope. I like to do the mystery envelopes because I can tier it. So when I pass out my colored strips to group them, I can differentiate. I can have my lower ones who need those place value blocks. I can have the higher groups. And in each one, I could pick a problem from the curriculum and scaffold it down so everyone could be successful. So I
What is
thought
that
about
strategy called?
it's called the mystery envelope, and you can use it anytime. But I thought this was a good time because the students won't know that they're being differentiated. So it's just a real
Right.
easy way to scaffold it down and everybody's successful. And that way I can concentrate my efforts on clarifying or providing more information. And I just thought, well, maybe something simple like this, it's following what's in the curriculum, it's following the SC, where we could even put the problem on here already. And they have their place value blocks on the
Right.
tables, then they could draw a representation, do the expanded algorithm, write the solution. So it's exactly what is in the textbook, but we can provide that help, and we're doing 4 at a time versus having to walk around, and we're
I love
scaffolding.
that.
I do too.
I love
So-
that. That's great.
Yeah. So
Great
that's-
foldable.
Yeah, same way I just came with them on the fly. So I thought
Okay.
that would be something fun we could do, and so we could just look through, and everybody could just find what problems their students need. If you have a really high
Right.
group, everybody
Right.
can. So that's called the mystery envelope. So I thought
So
that
when
would
you
be a good one.
differentiate that, are you giving harder problems to the higher kids and then the lower kids you're doing less?
Right. So I'm just
So what-
picking examples that are some are easier, some are harder. So like for if I have any special education or ELLs, they might have 210 plus, whereas some of the hires might have 900, where there may be a little bit more regrouping, a little bit
Right.
more,
Right. Okay,
Rigor.
I like that.
I
a
like
little more
that.
rigor. So just kind of, so then the point is just looking and finding which problems meet the needs of those students. And so
Okay.
then you're getting a lot of bang for your buck.
I
in a
like
little
that.
bit
I
of
really
time.
like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then I thought, because the reason I liked this was then they can share. And so then the students, and if they get it wrong, that's great too, because that's a reteach.
Right.
So whether they've done it good or bad or indifferent, doesn't matter. But they're doing they're drawing and doing all the steps.
I love
Okay.
So,
All right. How about 3-2? This one is where they're actually using the visual models in the lesson in the workbook.
Yes, and there are a lot of stimuluses. There's pictures, there's tables. And I also thought, because we're getting into the word problems, this
Right.
is getting into the meat with
Right.
the three digit addition. So this is a good time for us to teach the strategies. And I really liked what they put in our math curriculum. I was looking through. They added, it's make problem solving engaging. And so I was looking through it, and one of them I really liked is the chunk and chew.
Yes.
Kind of like a reading
Yes,
strategy where they
yes. Take it a little piece
Right.
at a time.
So, yeah, so I thought
and
we read the
process
whole
it.
problem first, so they
Right.
can get a kind of a picture, and then chunk and chew, chunk
Right.
it, turn and talk and share, and come back. So I really thought with these word problems, that's a good strategy. So they're taking
It
just
is.
apart and then chunking it. And I thought, well, they're chunking and chewing. What can they do with that information? A lead forward strategy, kind of like the UPSL, but it's see, plan, do, reflect. So it's kind of the same thing. So they're chunking and chewing. Okay, let's write it down. Then what's our plan? And so I thought that would be a good, something that they could put in their math journal. See, plan, do, review. So we could just pick like a really
So
good
it's called
problem.
see,
Plan, do, reflect. Is what
do,
reflect.
reflect.
And it's
I can see that strategy working a lot for math.
Yes.
so if you're chunking and chewing, see, plan, getting it, what you're seeing, what you're planning, then these word problems are gonna
Aren't so
break it down.
intimidating,
Not intimidating.
especially when they're all so multi-step.
Right, and then, because the problem is, we've worked so hard on the computation, on the strategies, grouping, the expanded algorithm.
And that will help them not stop at the first thing that they do, because that's
Right.
often the problem, is that they do the first
First.
step and they think, oh, I found the answer,
Yes.
and they don't go on to the next part.
Right.
And
Or they
Yeah.
look for the key words, they look
And,
at,
and
that will
unfortunately,
help 'em.
because STAR's so tricky like that,
Right.
that answer's going to
right,
be
of
there.
course it
Right.
is, right.
Yes, exactly. And so then, we've been
I love
teaching
that.
in first operations, so then they can check their work. So that's tying like several of the strategies, but I think that's just a good way. Work fewer problems, but work them with integrity and with depth and rigor. And
Now,
teach the
would you have
strategy.
your place value blocks out on the table every day for everyone, or how are you going to do that?
the children are really good. They kind of differentiate themselves. The ones who need them, sometimes they don't know they need them, so then you put them. But the other ones, if they need them,
Don't
I
go
have
to
them
them.
available.
Yeah, if you have them in the baskets or accessible.
Right, they're accessible. But once we, especially when we do something like this and we're teaching them,
Right.
and the curriculum does, want
Lend
them to
itself
draw,
to do
yes, and wants us to do that, then most of them will start drawing, especially when we get further into the regrouping. Then it's going to be so important for them to be able to draw and
I
not
like
just
that.
have,
And you can also do like exit tickets where they draw the representation of it in
Mhm.
their journals for
Yes.
the expanded
Yep.
edition. I like
Yeah.
that.
So on this day, after they do all that, what's gonna be our evidence of learning? Could we do like a 4 corners activity with
Mhm.
one of these word problems?
I like that.
I like that idea.
Maybe,
Yeah.
because there's already
Yeah,
number nine
Yeah.
on page 148.
That's what I
Okay,
like.
what page,
Number
what?
9.
Page 148, number 9.
148, number 9. What does that problem look like?
It's got pictures of it's got place value blocks and which problem goes with those place value blocks. Which
Oh,
numbers sent to
yes.
the place value block show.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, I like that. That four corners is a good,
Yes.
good strategy to use for evidence of learning that day. Okay. Anything else about 3-2?
Oh, I do want to say, I want to write it down. It's called the problem-solving board. So if you go back and you're looking in your lead forward strategies, it's
Okay.
not called seed plan. That's what it's called
It's
on
called
the
a
Plan to
paper.
reflect
but
this
it-
problem solving board.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
so we can find it.
You can find it, exactly, because I had trouble finding it. I'm like, I've seen it in there. What is it called? Yes, problem-solving board. And there's also a strategy that I'd like for us to discuss at a later date. It's problem solving. But I think this would be a good one, but it's not very specific. But I thought could be a good thing for these word problems. Let me hopefully I can find out.
The more we can
Problem
get
solving
them
graphic.
thinking about the problem solving and the strategies to use. What's it called?
It's called problem solving graphic. And basically it says, provide students with an assessment item or math problem. And before they do the math, by the steps of how they plan to solve the problem. So I think that could be something we could act out. Do something physical with that. So I thought that's something to give some thought. And then they write exactly what they plan to do first, second, third, and then they articulate it. So it's kind of, I think it lends itself to the plan part
Right.
of the problem solving board.
I think
But I like it.
because of my kids, I think that probably is going to be challenging for a lot of them. So we'll
Right.
definitely have them working with a partner.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that would be something, whatever we decide to do there, that would be good for the plan part of that problem solving.
Okay. All right, moving on to 3-3. And is that the day where we actually start working on the algorithm?
Yes.
It is.
Finally.
Finally.
Yes.
Finally, we're
Yes.
working on doing the algorithm.
And we were talking about,
And because we're doing the checkpoint next week, we're supposed to do that lesson that we just talked about over 2 days. So we'll be able to do a lot of chunking and chewing and a lot of different examples because we're
Right.
supposed to do it
Split it.
over 2 days.
Right.
There's a couple lead forward strategies that the district has already put in for 3-3. They're taking the solve and share and at the beginning of the lesson and they're having, they want us to do think, pair, square, share. And the kids, they can use the place value blocks to solve it first and then they can work with their partners and talk about how they solve it. That's what I like about these because they can solve it any way you choose and so
Right.
they can kind of, whatever works best for them because we've looked at different strategies.
Right.
So I like that. So we can do a think, pair, square, share with that.
Should we have them write down and talk about their strategy, the strategy that they used?
Yeah.
yeah. And then after they were finished, then that's when we can show the work and discuss what Kiko and Michael.
Okay, so that's think, pair, share, square.
Turn
Turn and talk.
Turn it off.
Turn and talk.
Fancy turn it off.
Okay.
There is a table, because we were talking about using a
Yes,
table.
I saw. Is that the
There
one
are
with the Ferris
tables.
wheel and the tickets?
Yeah, well, no, there's soup
Wait.
That was on a
can
different- that
labels.
was
Oh yeah, it is different. Soup can labels.
There's soup can label, page 156, and then there's another one on 156, I think would be something that we could do for guided, because it's it has less information.
You're looking at the table at the top.
Number 6.
Players and the points.
And they're having to.
We
ask
might
them.
have to put a different, if we're going with just the lesson, we may have to create a question for it, because this is going back to
about rounding.
estimation.
Yeah.
But we
that's what I
could
was
Well,
use
they
thinking
that
have
too.
to work it, yes.
We could use that table
Use the
and
table.
create our own. You could even have the kids create a question that goes with the table. If you wanted to,
That would be a really good evidence of learning
Yeah.
if they can create their own
Question.
problem.
What page is
on
that?
that
Page
table, 156.
Number 6.
And you could scaffold that by having, you know, this, maybe have them work with partners and say, okay, you two create a one-step problem. You two create a two-step problem. You two create a three-step problem that has,
And then they could solve each other's.
yeah.
Yes, with the snowball. They can snowball at the end of the lesson.
I always try to find a way to
Change
get
the
snowball.
snowball.
That's a good one.
I
Yeah,
like that.
let's do that. I
Okay.
like that. They create a word problem with their partner, and then we snowball a couple of times, and then they have to solve it.
You could even provide, if they needed extra support, some of my kids will need maybe
Yes.
even a sentence stem to kind of
Right.
get them started too. But they love the snowball, so I think that's
Yes.
good, and then they can solve it. That can be their
Yeah.
exit ticket.
And we can work on how we pair them up, so we know that at least one
Strategically.
of them
Yes.
has the concept of
Use some
Right.
strategy.
Yeah.
Right.
strategic. Okay, all right. 3.3, is that a 2-day lesson? 3.3? Or is that the end of the week?
That's
That's
the end
it.
of the week.
Okay,
That's it.
all right. So we have 4 corners in the snowball. And I mentioned earlier about for our assessment for the week or to
Yes.
check for understanding for the week. I'd really like for us to consider, I mean, I know we did a table problem here for the snowball, but I'd really like for us to do an assessment item using possibly,
Where's that one?
where's
A
the
different
one
table.
about the
Ferris wheel.
the
Well, we
Ferris
could
wheel
also-
one?
On page 150.
I like that one about the Ferris wheel and the roller coaster and the swings, because you could word those to,
This and
which
this.
2 rides, yeah,
Right.
did the swings and the roller coaster sell more tickets, or did the Ferris wheel and the roller coaster sell more tickets? And kind of use that as maybe an assessment item to see if they can take things from a table and put it
Put it
into a word problem and make it multi-step. What do you think about that?
I think that'd be great. We might also want to add a griddable for them
Oh,
so we can begin
yeah.
practicing that.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Yes.
What page is that
Griddable, too.
Ferris wheel problem on?
150.
150, and we're gonna use that as an assessment.
You want me
And,
to write that? I'll write that and make it for everybody.
okay,
Awesome.
and then make a griddable. And we can get the griddable in the math curriculum, right? Or do we have to go out and? No,
I
it's
have
in the
it.
math curriculum.
Yeah, I sent it to you.
Yes.
To everybody.
Well, yeah, we have it.
We have it.
Okay. All right,
Excellent.
Excellent.
Beauty.
okay.
Good
Well,
job.
We are done.
Love it.
Oh, and I think the thing we're talking about is maybe throwing in some of the IQ slap down.
Yeah, that's
did
in
mention
there
that.
several times, and
Okay,
it does
good.
say in
Okay.
here to use it with the
For
TEKS
teacher
review.
review.
But I'd like to consider maybe finding some of those problems
Right.
with the star next to them.
Yes.
At the end of
and-
the lesson.
Yeah, and using
Right.
those too.
That's a good idea.
Okay.